Nearly 2 years have passed since rich homie Quan's unexpected death, yet the silence around it has only grown heavier, not quieter. What authorities initially framed as a tragic overdose has slowly morphed into a lingering mystery, one the internet refuses to bury. Instead of closure, questions echo louder than ever. And now, new voices are stirring the conversation again, with women rumored to have been involved with Quan stepping forward and telling their sides. Before anything else, one thing must be made absolutely clear: none of what follows has been officially confirmed. These are not court documents or proven facts. This is speculation, street-level talk shaped by public records, timelines, and moments that never quite aligned. But when the same unanswered questions keep resurfacing, people naturally begin to wonder whether the truth has been hiding in plain sight all along. To understand why suspicion took root, you have to go back to the morning of September 5, 2024, the day everything stopped. According to the official account, Quan's brother, Andre Munford, was the first to encounter him. Just after 3 a.m., Andre walked into the kitchen and found Quan collapsed on the floor, food still in his mouth, completely unresponsive. For most people, a moment like that would spark instant panic, screaming for help, dialing 911 without hesitation. But that's not what Andre said happened. In his statement to police, he explained that instead of calling for emergency assistance, he lifted Quan and placed him on the couch. No ambulance. No immediate plea for help. Just a relocation, and then nothing. That single decision raised eyebrows almost immediately. Hours later, around 6:45 a.m., Quan's partner and the mother of his children, Amber, woke up to get the kids ready for school. She noticed Quan lying on the couch, cold and unresponsive. Believing nothing was wrong, she covered him with a blanket and left the house. She later admitted she didn't check to see if he was breathing. It wasn't until she returned home around 11 a.m. that reality reportedly hit. Quan was still in the exact same position, cold, unresponsive, now foaming at the mouth. That was when she finally called 911. When audio of that call surfaced, public attention shifted dramatically. People weren't dissecting her words as much as her tone. Many listeners felt her voice sounded unusually calm, detached even. Not frantic. Not desperate. More like someone reporting an incident than witnessing the final moments of a loved one. At one point, she asked if Quan's father could be added to the call, a request that struck many as odd given the urgency of the situation. From there, speculation exploded. And then the internet cracked open even further. In the days following Quan's death, several women began posting online, each claiming they had been romantically involved with him. Photos appeared, mirror selfies, hotel hallways, private moments. Messages surfaced too, filled with affection and emotional intimacy. One woman, known online as Big Brit, made no attempt to soften her stance. She openly suggested that her bond with Quan outweighed public opinion entirely. "I don't care what nobody has to say," she wrote. "You was my everything. What am I supposed to do? We knew everything about each other. Literally everything. Relationship or not, you was my dog before anything." Soon after, Erica Banks added her voice to the growing chorus. She posted, then quickly deleted, photos of herself with Quan, paired with a caption reflecting on the calm, meaningful moments they shared together. That's when Akbar stepped in, reposting Erica's words and addressing her directly. Her response wasn't explosive or cruel, it was restrained, almost weary. "Every time someone loses their life, here comes the sneaky link posting pictures and videos," she wrote. "That man isn't even in the ground yet. I know you might be hurting, but delete those out of respect for his family." That single statement became the emotional fault line of the entire situation. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It didn't accuse or insult. But within those words, people heard grief, exhaustion, and a plea for boundaries. The message wasn't that the love was fake, it was that some things were never meant to be public. Some relationships lived in the shadows by design, and death doesn't automatically grant them the right to daylight. For Amber, this was never about erasing Quan's past or denying who he may have loved. It was about preserving what little dignity remained for a man who could no longer defend his own name, and shielding a family forced to grieve while the world watched, judged, and speculated in real time. Grief has never been something the internet knows how to sit with. It doesn't slow down. It doesn't wait. And in Quan's case, his passing seemed to unlock a door that had already been rattling on its hinges. The moment the news spread, women began appearing online one after another, each asserting closeness, significance, a special place in his life. Screenshots surfaced. Private messages were exposed. Voice notes and old clips, things once meant to stay between two people, were suddenly dragged into the spotlight. From the outside, it didn't resemble mourning at all. It felt like a race. A contest to be recognized as the one who mattered most now that the man at the center of it all could no longer speak. What made the situation feel especially unsettling was how quickly it all unfolded. One woman publicly announced Quan's death before Amber had even been given the space to absorb it herself, let alone address it. For many watching, that was the moment something shifted. Announcing a death isn't a flex. It isn't content. It isn't a chance to be first. Those moments belong to family before anyone else, and crossing that boundary turned discomfort into outrage. Even people who had previously questioned Amber's actions began to reconsider who was really acting out of pain, and who was acting out of self-interest. As the posts kept coming, public figures stopped tiptoeing around the issue. They spoke plainly, without coded language or polite distance. They called the behavior what it was, disrespectful. Not because love wasn't real, but because timing matters. Context matters. Once someone dies, the rules change. It no longer matters who loved him privately or publicly, briefly or deeply. What matters is the family left behind, and that realization slowly began to bend the narrative in a new direction. At the same time, people started looking at Amber differently. Not as someone lashing out, but as someone who might finally be exhausted. Quan's death didn't exist in a vacuum. It sat on top of years of rumors, public embarrassment, whispered betrayals that never seemed to fade. Loving someone in the public eye often means suffering in public too, and Amber had carried that quietly for a long time. So when she spoke about privacy and respect, some stopped hearing jealousy and started hearing burnout. The kind that comes from holding yourself together for far too long. The timeline only deepened that shift. Fans began retracing events, replaying moments with new awareness, noticing details they once ignored. And when attention turned to Andre's behavior after Quan's passing, the discomfort intensified. Instead of retreating into silence, there was activity. Visibility. He was seen wearing Quan's clothes, something that might have felt sentimental in another setting, but here struck many as performative. Laughing emojis appeared in posts that felt painfully misaligned with the gravity of the loss. Then came the accusations of financial gain. Increased posting. Heightened engagement. Reaching out to artists about collaborations only days after his brother's death. To some, it looked like a man trying to survive chaos. To others, it looked like someone capitalizing on it. Grief doesn't follow a single script, that's true, but the internet is unforgiving when mourning doesn't look the way it expects. All of it blended into a noise so loud that no one was truly listening anymore. Everyone was reacting. Projecting. Picking sides. The women who spoke out said they deserved acknowledgement. Amber asked for boundaries. The public demanded clarity from people who were barely staying afloat. And at the center of it all was a man who no longer had a voice to explain, defend, apologize, or correct the story being built around him. That's what often gets overlooked in situations like this. Quan was gone. Whatever truths he held, whatever mistakes he made, whatever promises he broke or kept, they were sealed in time. Yet his image wasn't allowed to rest. His memory became something to dissect, repost, debate. Each screenshot stripped away another layer of peace. Each leaked message transformed grief into spectacle. For Amber, the pain had outgrown the idea of betrayal. It became something heavier, watching someone she loved be reduced to a storyline instead of remembered as a human being. Watching the most fragile moments of their lives turned into content. When she asked for posts to be deleted, it wasn't about denying anyone's experience. It was about drawing a boundary between what the public was entitled to and what should have stayed with the dead. The internet has never respected boundaries, especially when drama is involved. But this situation forced an uncomfortable question into the open. Just because something can be shared, does that mean it should be? Does having a relationship automatically grant the world access to its most intimate proof? And when someone dies, who gets to shape their story, the people left behind, or the loudest voices online? As time passed, the shock faded, but the consequences didn't. Grief doesn't expire when a topic stops trending. Families don't get to log out of loss. Children, parents, siblings carry it into quiet moments, sleepless nights, and dates no one else remembers. And every repost, every resurfaced clip, tears open wounds that were never given the chance to heal. Eventually, many began to understand that this was no longer about infidelity or scandal. It was a reflection of how quickly empathy disappears once social media gets involved. How mourning turns into performance. How respect becomes optional when attention is the reward. And how easy it is to forget that behind every viral moment is a family asking for one simple thing: dignity. Maybe Amber wasn't flawless. Maybe Quan wasn't either. But perfection was never the measure, humanity was. And when Amber asked for privacy, when she asked for certain things to remain unspoken, she wasn't trying to control a narrative. She was asking the internet to do what it finds hardest to do: pause. To step back. To accept that not every truth is ours to dissect simply because curiosity demands it. What lingers now is less a scandal and more a warning. A reminder about restraint. About knowing when words help and when they only harm. About recognizing that death doesn't erase complexity, but it does require reverence. And about understanding that the loudest voices are rarely the most accurate ones. Sometimes the most honest plea is also the softest: let him rest, and let those who loved him mourn without an audience. Still, to many observers, it didn't register as grief. It felt like opportunity. In the days after Quan's death, people weren't just grieving, they were scrutinizing. Studying body language, timing, proximity, who stood next to whom, and how comfortable they looked doing it. That's when the whispers began, quiet at first, then steadily louder. Rumors slipped through timelines and private chats suggesting that Andre and Amber may have shared a closeness that crossed unspoken lines while Quan was still alive. There were no receipts. No concrete proof. Just patterns. Familiarity. The kind of ease between two people that makes outsiders uneasy. And after Quan was gone, instead of distance, people thought they saw more closeness, more shared moments, more emotional comfort. Enough to make the public tilt their heads and ask questions no one could answer openly. Grief, at least online, is expected to follow a script. Silence. Retreat. Pain kept off stage. What people thought they witnessed didn't align with that expectation. Not necessarily because it was wrong, but because it was different. And when expectations are disrupted in the public eye, suspicion rushes in to fill the void. The focus drifted away from mourning Quan and toward dissecting everyone around him, as if his death had turned into a spotlight exposing the unseen dynamics of his inner circle. Every smile, every appearance, every post became evidence in a trial that existed only in public opinion. That's when industry voices started speaking up, and once they did, the story sharpened. Hurricane Chris was among the first to openly challenge the overdose narrative that had been accepted almost immediately. His comments went beyond Quan's case, pointing instead to a broader and far more dangerous reality: counterfeit pills flooding the streets and the industry. Drugs designed to look familiar, safe, trusted, but laced with lethal substances. He warned that people were dying daily from pills they never intended to take, pills they believed were something else entirely. His words sounded like concern, like a warning, but they also cracked the official story open. Because once the overdose explanation is questioned, everything surrounding it becomes uncertain. As doubts grew, the explanation felt even less believable to those closest to Quan, especially his father. He never accepted the overdose conclusion, not even briefly. His grief was raw and unfiltered, filled with disbelief rather than acceptance. He spoke about Quan not as an artist, but as a son. He didn't paint him as perfect. He admitted Quan smoked. He admitted he drank. But pills, he insisted, were not part of his son's life. According to him, that simply wasn't who Quan was. He described himself as a strict, present father who stayed involved even after fame entered the picture. He said they spoke every single day. That constant connection, he believed, gave him insight into Quan's habits, his moods, his changes. If something felt off, he addressed it directly. That's why the toxicology report didn't sit right with him, not just what it claimed, but how fast it arrived. How quickly everything seemed wrapped up, labeled, and closed. In most high-profile deaths, especially involving celebrities, investigations stretch on. Reports take time. Details are revisited. Loose ends are pulled. But in Quan's case, the process felt rushed, almost too neat. Too final. The industry has witnessed enough loss to recognize when something feels unresolved, and to his father, that's exactly what this was: unfinished. As if the conclusion had been decided before all the questions were allowed to surface. As speculation expanded, more names were dragged into the conversation. At one point, attention turned toward Young Thug. Some fans believed unresolved tension existed beneath the surface, pointing to moments when Quan had publicly distanced himself. Old clips resurfaced, instances where Quan allegedly disrespected him on stage, even making comments about his sexuality. In the hypermasculine culture of rap, those moments are rarely forgotten. For some, that history alone was enough to construct a theory. And the internet, as always, didn't need proof, only a story that felt plausible. That theory didn't survive for long. People close to Young Thug moved quickly to shut it down, insisting that whatever tension outsiders thought they saw was never personal. According to them, any friction between Thug and Quan lived strictly at the industry level: creative differences, business decisions, nothing more. And when Quan passed, Thug was reportedly devastated. Not distant. Not defensive. Crushed. The kind of grief that doesn't align with revenge or resentment, but with losing someone who mattered. That reality didn't fit the narrative people were trying to build, so eventually, attention drifted elsewhere. Then another name resurfaced, and the mood shifted again. When Birdman entered the conversation, the tone grew heavier. Birdman wasn't just another artist in Quan's orbit, he was power. An architect of careers. A connector. the one who originally brought Quan and Thug together. His presence in the story felt unavoidable, especially to fans who already believed he had a history of falling out with artists once they became too independent or too difficult to control. Those accusations had circulated for years, but Quan's death breathed new life into them. No one accused Birdman outright. There were no direct claims, no statements, no proof. But in the music industry, influence rarely announces itself. Power doesn't always show up loudly or violently. Sometimes it moves quietly, through conversations behind closed doors, through leverage, through silence. And in an industry built on constant noise, silence can feel deafening. What truly unsettled people wasn't the idea that someone wanted Quan gone. It was the fear that the full truth might never surface at all. That the explanation given was the cleanest version, not the most honest one. Fans know the industry's history, how uncomfortable details get smoothed over, how sudden deaths are wrapped up with familiar labels. Every time a young artist dies under questionable circumstances, the same questions resurface: who benefits, who stays quiet, and who moves on too fast? Andre and Amber stayed under the microscope, not because anyone could prove wrongdoing, but because closeness itself became suspicious. Being near Quan, before and after his death, placed them at the center of every theory. Some people believed they were simply grieving together. Others believed there was more beneath the surface. And in the absence of clear answers, speculation filled the silence. Quan himself slowly became more than just a person in this story. He became a symbol. Another gifted artist gone too soon. Another death explained with a narrative many found too convenient. Another family left with unanswered questions while the world gradually shifted its attention elsewhere. His father's grief lingered behind every discussion, a constant reminder that beyond rumors and theories was a man who lost his son and never accepted the explanation he was given. Nothing definitive ever emerged. No smoking gun. No shocking revelation. Just fragments, contradictions, and a lingering sense that something didn't sit right. Maybe that's why the story refuses to fade. Unanswered questions have a way of haunting people. Silence invites imagination. And in an industry where power often operates in shadows, the absence of clarity can feel louder than any confession. Even so, as time passed, the focus kept circling back to one place: the house. The brother who found Quan and didn't call for help. The child's mother whose calm unsettled listeners. The women who exposed a complicated double life. The father who rejected the official cause of death outright. And the leaked 911 call that permanently shifted public opinion. Now, nearly 2 years later, the same question still echoes online. Was rich homie Quan truly lost to an overdose, or did someone inside that house know more than they've ever said? And if Quan was trying to pull away from certain circles, or stretched thin by too many relationships, who actually stood to gain when he never woke up? The streets haven't stopped talking. Some claim Amber already knew he was gone, that covering him was about shielding their child from seeing something no kid should ever see. Others go much further. One viral comment spiraled into accusation, claiming old videos showed jealousy in Andre's eyes, pointing to him wearing Quan's clothes, reaching out to artists, trying to live the life Quan left behind. It be your own people, the commenter wrote, turning grief into suspicion. Another post questioned the timeline entirely.